In this season of giving, the getting has never been better for the makers of the enchanting and intriguing
That tickles.
On Santa's wish list.
Parents are crazed trying to get the hottest and hardest to find toys.
With projected sales in the billions, industry executives like David Miller couldn't be more pleased.
Toys R Us reported record profits. Mattel bought Tyco. You and your family are back in the business. It's been a great year for toys. I'm reading that parents are fighting in the stores because they can't get enough.
That's wonderful, isn't it?
Boy, that tickles.
But as wonderful as it is for the companies and their stockholders, we wondered, who's paying the price for the profits in Toyland? You may have seen the protests at home.
Child labor, no to the return of the sweatshop.
But tonight, our hidden camera investigation reveals what you haven't seen as we take you behind the barbed wire and prison-like walls of toy factories in Southeast Asia, where 2 million workers produce for your family and the world 80% of all toys.
The Toy Manufacturers of America have a code of conduct.
Yes.
What does your code of conduct say?
People will be employed willingly, that they will be paid in accordance with the laws of the country that you're manufacturing in, that child labor and prison labor will not be used.
And if members of your organization find that child labor or other labor abuses are present?
Our industry leaders are on record as saying they will close factories that are found to do that summarily, and they will do everything they can to blackball those manufacturers.
Close them down.
Mm-hmm.
Dateline decided to find out just how well toy companies are living up to that code of conduct.
This is where Santa's helpers really come from, and they come cheap. These shanties along the muddy back roads of places like Medan, Indonesia. They are young women and children, some of them as young as 13 years old, working long hours so that children in America can put frilly dresses on America's favorite doll.
My name is Waitsiti. I'm 14 years old, and I have worked at the factory for 1 year.
What kinds of things are you making at the factory?
I make clothes for Barbies like this one.
What's the last grade you finished in school?
5th grade in elementary school.
Meet Wasiti, Ramla, and Nening. Though only elementary school graduates, they represent Indonesia's economic secret to keeping the world's multi-billion-dollar toy industry profitable. While most know Indonesia as a land of great physical beauty, businesses have long relied on Indonesia for its greatest resource, its people. They are plentiful, cheap, and young. Drive down the back roads of industrial areas like Bekasi, and you will see the signs.
It says women workers needed. Women workers needed.
Go behind the guarded walls, as we did, undercover, and you will see the faces. And the telltale signs of youth, 2 million strong, that help drive multinational companies to prosper. While half a world away, her American counterparts are getting out of school and heading for the mall. Every day at 2:30, Ramla gets ready for her 40-minute bike ride to her factory job at one of Mattel's largest contractors for Barbie clothes, a job she's had since she was 14.
How many hours do you work each day?
From 3:30 to 11 p.m., about 7 hours of the night shift.
Do you know that children your age are not supposed to work at night?
I know about that, but I cannot change shift.
Are there many children like you working in the factory?
A lot. There are some children who have not finished elementary school yet, but if the factory needs them, they will be hired.
Though the girls say the factory is clean and the workers treated well, employing children full-time and at night violates Indonesian law. To get a closer look, Dateline posed as toy manufacturers.
Nice to meet you.
You're making the clothes. Hi. Steve Phillips, how are you? Nice to see you.
We chose this factory because it deals exclusively with a big American toy company, which means it should be following that code of conduct. We talk with the owner's son, Nicholas.
4.5 years with Mattel.
Yes.
Mostly Barbie?
Mostly. All of them are Barbies.
But all of these clothes for Barbie you're making for export primarily to the U.S.?
Yes. Shipped back to U.S.
Should companies in this country, manufacturing abroad, be accountable and responsible for the conditions over there?
Yes, they should.
Why?
Because one must run a factory in a lawful, ethical way.
Remember, the girls we talked to started their factory jobs as young as 13, a violation of Indonesian law as well as toy manufacturers' ethics. But it didn't take much inspection to understand the appeal of underage workers, young, female, and eager to earn the minimum wage of just over $2 a day. Workers like Neneng willingly put up with the hardship.
I feel tired and back pain. I also feel uncomfortable in my eyes because I have to concentrate all the time on the work for which I always have to use a needle.
Although buses are provided during the day for some, most workers on the night shift, like Neneng, have to brave the dark roads for a lonely, hour-long ride home.
I get scared biking home alone. Once I was chased by some people.
The night we followed her, the road was so treacherous we had to say goodbye at midnight. With 10 brothers and sisters in this two-room house, the income Neneng makes, a little over $11 a week, is essential to the survival of her family.
I worry about her coming home late. I'm afraid someone bad will make trouble.
She does this job because our family is very poor. She works very hard. Neneng always gives the money to the family.
Can you show me your room?
Like Neneng's family, the 8 members of Ramla's family depend on the $2 a day she earns at the factory to make ends meet. As in so many Indonesian families, Ramla's mother and her father are unemployed.
This is where you sleep?
Me, my grandmother, and my brother.
Are the wages at the factory good wages? Could a family live on those wages?
Not even close. I myself spend about 6,000 rupiah for daily expenses. My daughter only earns 4,600 rupiah.
Struggling to earn a living wage and working 8-hour shifts, I learned, doesn't keep the girls from being little girls.
What do you think of the products that your factory makes? The clothes for these Barbie dolls? Do you like them?
We all like them.
Do you own a Barbie doll? Do you have a Barbie doll yourself?
A fake one.
A real one would be pretty expensive. How long would you have to work at your jobs to have enough money to buy a Barbie doll, a real Barbie doll? 1 year?
Even 2 years, we wouldn't be able to buy it.
2 years of work, you still wouldn't be able to afford it. So these are dolls for children with money in the United States.
Yes.
But perhaps most disturbing was hearing from the girls that under the guise of training, the factory pays child workers only half of their wage, just over $1 a day. The girls say it was 9 months before they got their full wage. We told industry spokesman David Miller what we learned.
Mattel people would be stunned to hear what you say, because they are as good at monitoring as any company in the world.
Is Mattel often here looking? Do they come to the plant to inspect?
They do. They'll send people over.
Frequently?
Not to inspect.
And Nicholas confided something else to us. His factory used to be in Jakarta. He moved it to Medan because labor here is cheaper.
Labor is still easy to control, easy to manage, and the pricing is still cheaper than outside. So like you say, it's a well-kept secret.
And you like it that way?
Oh yeah, definitely. We tend, we have the advantage that way.
I mean, isn't it always about shaving where and when you can, producing it for the lowest possible cost in order to maximize profit?
Is there anything wrong with that?
Only if it leads to abuses.
Abuses are not acceptable under any set of circumstances. And to use the excuse that you must shave your price so that you can't pay your employees their lawful wage is not justified. It's not ethically correct.
Hi, nice to see you.
But as our investigation continued, we would visit other factories making many of your favorite toys. And while we heard a lot about long shifts and low prices, the phrase ethically correct never came up.
I like Barbie. I feel sad if Americans don't buy Barbie dolls. I'm glad that I make clothes for Barbie.
While Neneng and the thousands of young female toy workers of Indonesia sew, stitch, and sweat to make America's favorites, what they don't know is their jobs may not be there for long. Jobs that may move to a cheaper country, as they've moved in years past from Japan to Korea, from Korea to Indonesia. It's what critics call a race to the bottom, from Pooh to Paddington. Toy companies shop for overseas factories, in fierce competition to underbid one another, often at a cost to their workers. Posing as a toy company,
I'm Mr. Phillips.
For vended toys?
Dateline went undercover in Asia
I'm Mr. Phillips.
to see just how cheaply we could knock off an American staple, the Vermont teddy bear.
This is what we're interested in doing. We have real suede here on the feet.
We want to get your best price.
With the help of Joe Roy Allen, a retired textile manufacturer, we learned there is method to the bidding madness.
How much does it cost to produce this?
Factory number 1, uniforms, 8-hour shifts, well-lit individual benches. And the price tag for our bear? $4.10. We did better at factory number 2. Longer shifts, 12 hours here, outdated equipment, exposed electrical wires, blocked fire exits. And the bid here?
My price now is 2.8.
What happened to 275?
275 up to 3.
And even better at factory number 3.
I'd like you to meet Mr. Phillips and Mr. Allen.
Yes, nice to meet you.
We were surprised to find that our lowest bid came from a contractor who services some of the best-known brands.
Who's your biggest customer right now from the United States?
Walt Disney.
Walt Disney.
Mr. Lee proudly displayed familiar American classics.
And this is the applause.
Oh, yes, applause.
And then we talked price.
Now we get to the price. Your price is?
220 up to 230.
After surveying the floor and talking to the workers, we soon discovered how Mr. Lee may keep his costs so low.
She's so cute. She just finished elementary school and she worked here for 3 months. 3,900 a day. And she said that's enough.
Underage workers earning below minimum wage making Paddington bears for an American company called Eden Toys, a company owned by David Miller's family. Remember, Miller is president of the Toy Manufacturers of America and a strong supporter of its code of conduct.
Good code. Can you enforce it?
I challenge anyone to come forward with the name of a company and the practice that's taking place. I guarantee that our industry will see that that factory is out of business.
Then we told him what we found. Underage workers making bears for his brother's company.
Does it surprise you to hear that?
Yes.
Should it surprise you if you're doing your inspections?
Should it surprise me? It would surprise me because it shouldn't happen. I'm shocked, to be honest.
Underage workers and undesirable conditions hardly shocked Joe Roy Allen.
What has stood out the most to you from what we've seen here?
Oh, the poverty.
Allen, who says his textile business went under because he couldn't compete with sweatshop labor, insists that labor this cheap usually comes at some human cost.
So what's all of this about?
Greedonomics. This is about getting product made as cheap as you possibly can, regardless of morals or anything else. Just getting it made cheap.
And maximizing your profit.
That is correct. And business is entitled to make a profit. But I think business has a moral obligation to the workers.
I think fair is the key thing.
Pat Burns is Chief Executive Officer of the Vermont Teddy Bear Company.
We don't gouge. We cover our costs and make a fair profit. And I think that's our marching order as far as the financial side of the balance sheet is concerned.
As a toy company, Vermont Teddy Bear is an endangered species.
Looks good. How's it going today? Looks to me like you did a great job.
One of the few still making its product in America. With workers making $7.25 an hour, plus health benefits and a stock plan, labor costs here aren't cheap. Last year, the factory considered shutting down and moving production overseas. How much could Burns have saved? Well, remember, each bear cost him just over $14 here.
We took one of your teddy bears overseas with us.
You
to
did?
Indonesia and to China.
What did he think of him?
Well, everybody liked your teddy bear. The prices we got was quite a range. We found factories that can produce this teddy bear for as little as $2.25 per bear.
That's a very low price. We're not in the chase to the bottom. We're in the chase for a better product, a great company culture, great place to be, a great business to participate in, It's a nice livelihood, you know, on the one hand. How many meals a day can you eat?
Burns says he can afford to keep making his bear in America because he has a strong mail-order business and doesn't have to compete for shelf space. But big toy companies argue that overseas production is critical to their survival, enabling them to produce large volumes at the lowest possible price for consumers.
Stop exploitation!
But critics say it's not about lower prices, it's about higher profits. Labor activist Charles Kernigan has been studying manufacturing and markups.
What we're finding out is that the markup, when it goes from the offshore manufacturer to the retailer, we're looking 200, 300, 400, 500, 600% markups. I mean, it's unbelievable.
We wondered about the toys we'd seen. Remember Mr. Lee's factory, where there were underage girls making those bears for Eden Toys?
How much do these little Paddington bears?
1 piece.
1 piece. What can you produce it for?
70 cents. One piece.
Finished.
You heard it, just 70 cents to pack, produce, and ship this bear to America, where it's selling for $8. The markup, more than 1,000%. But there's a place that's even cheaper than Indonesia, a world we gained rare access to, a place that manufactures 80% of all the toys on the planet, China. Before receiving Most Favored Nation status in 1979, a tax break supposedly contingent on human rights, China did not produce a single toy for the U.S. In June, when Congress threatened to pull China's MFN status because of alleged human rights and copyright violations, the toy industry's David Miller successfully testified on China's behalf. Losing MFN status would have meant a 70% tax on toys made in China.
I have decided to extend unconditional Most Favored Nation trade status to China.
Today, toys made there aren't taxed at all. This is Shenzhen Province, nickname Santa's Economic Zone. Here, all-night factories churn out 1 out of every 2 toys sold in America. Here, more than 1 million migrant female workers eat, sleep, and work in factory compounds for just over $1 a day. That's half of what Indonesian workers earn.
Yes, the age is 18 to 25, and so ID card, and not married.
I say this is prostitution.
Apo Leong, a Hong Kong-based advocate for Asian toy workers, monitors working conditions throughout the region.
These toy women workers mostly work more than 10 hours a day, and sometimes without a rest day or even holidays. And above all, every day they are exposed to dangerous chemicals from solvents, from what we call invisible killers.
With our hidden camera rolling, Dateline visited 2 Chinese factories.
Oh, it's mechanical stuff.
Yes.
In this one, we found young women working 12-hour shifts, making everything from Avon rabbits to one of this year's hottest sellers, 101 Dalmatians.
4,000 people can live there?
The factory manager proudly pointed out the crowded living compounds just across the street, where 4,000 workers live.
10 to 12 per.
At the other factory, where popular action figures like Spider-Man and other cartoon characters are manufactured, we saw workers subjected to stifling fumes without protective masks or gloves.
They don't have masks? What do you nothing? Every day?
And we saw this. The living conditions. The young workers housed 16 to a room, a cramped series of bunks. The only privacy, a towel or a cardboard wall for those lucky enough to have one. All they own is kept here in spaces no bigger than a closet. No heat, no running water. As for safety, it's crowded conditions like these that played a role twice in the past 3 years in deadly fires at toy factories in Asia. The death toll, 265. Charles Kernigan, an outspoken critic of overseas labor practices, says in places like China and Indonesia, companies should not be left to police themselves.
Again and again and again, all of these companies that have claimed that they had corporate codes of conduct. And you know, they tell you, we screen our contractors, we interview them, they have to fill out audits, we have site inspections. It's nonsense.
With all due respect, can the industry be trusted to police itself? Why not
independent monitoring?
Those who claim that they're independent and would be suitable to monitor have their own political agendas. Many times, the aim is to destroy trade with foreign countries.
But we wondered, if we hadn't looked, who would know about the fumes, the fire hazards, and the living conditions at those toy factories we visited in China? Who would know that those girls barely out of elementary school work full-time, day and night, in Indonesia? If it can happen to Eden Toys, your family's company, can it happen to anybody?
It can. We really don't want it to continue. We want to see these practices eliminated.
But until that day comes, this message from a concerned voice in Asia to consumers in America: tell companies you care how your toys are made and who makes them.
We are not announcing a boycott on toys made in China or made in Indonesia, but we are asking the consumers, make sure they think twice before they buy these Christmas toys for the American children.